Good morning, gang. I'm back. I went to the bathroom in a hole back there, and I feel really bad about it. But my first hack of the day is sometimes you gotta break some eggs to use the bathroom. You know what I mean? You're gonna do some things you don't feel good about in nature, and as long as no one sees you're in the clear, you're fine. I'm gonna be avoiding water for a couple of days, just till I get my balance back. I feel kind of dizzy. I'm not much of a big drinker anyway. The fever is still there. It's a little worse. I feel really weak. So all that food that I ate it's gone. It's in a hole back there. My second nature hack is don't drink water in nature. We need to get water in my body without drinking water. And the best way to do that is to eat food that's full of water. Guess what, gang? I know of food that swims in water all day. Can you guess what it is? I'll give you 5 seconds. It's fish. And if we can just get one of these out of the water and into my body, I will be hydrated for a week. My dad's probably worried sick about me. I heard someone back there that was saying, hey, did you hear Gary's dad told everyone to look out for his beloved son, Gary. He's lost in the woods and he's worried for his little boy. I was asleep when I heard this. I wasn't able to figure out who those guys were, but people are looking for me. My dad's trying to bring me home, and someone's gonna find me pretty soon. For now, let's find some food that has water in it. Let's catch some fish. I hear water somewhere. Some berries. I'm not gonna touch those. What is this, gang? Sweet water. This is good, gang. So now we just need to catch the fish with I don't have a fishing stick. Oh, darn it. That's fine. We're nature hack number 3. If you don't have a fishing stick, use your hat. Use your hat. Dip your hat in the water and catch the fish with the hat. I'm gonna put you right here. All right, gang. My next nature hack is to take your shoes off before you go in water so you don't get your shoes all wet.
Oh, it's squishy. It is squishy on my feet. Really slippery. I don't like this feeling. Are you ready to catch some fish? Take your hat. Be patient. I don't see any fish. So guess what, gang? That means the fish are asleep. And we need to shake things up a little bit. We need to wake the fish up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake things up. I'm going to get things moving down here. Kind of lonely out here. Nothing, no fish. I got something. It's a rock. That's not a fish. Rocks are good for, just put it back. I felt something tickle my foot. All right, gang, we've been doing it all wrong. Instead of waiting for the fish to come to you, you need to go to the fish. My next nature hack is don't stand around waiting for fish. They're not going to come to you. They have things to do. You go to them. That's right. You have a head. Use it. Dive straight into the water. It's pretty deep water. So first fish you make eye contact with, grab that fish.